All right. Hey, everybody. Dumbbells here. We are live with Eric Mosley of Black Mat Yoga.
That's it.
Black Mat Yoga. Um, pretty, pretty straightforward of a name. And so it takes care of everything you need. And yeah, and here we are, and we're so happy to have him. He's based originally out of New
New York.
York.
Yeah. So I'm
But
in Harlem typically.
okay.
But I decided to take the summer away and come to LA.
Yeah.
With my cousin who I love so dearly, Lacey Mosley.
Yes.
And well, I'll be here for 2 weeks, and then I'm going to San Fran to stay with the best friend for 2 more weeks. So it's like a
Ooh,
month,
nice.
and then I'll head back to New York. But I had to get some sunshine in my life. Had to get some West Coast.
Yes.
All of
Sorry, sorry. The COVID numbers have increased since you've
that.
arrived.
Yeah, that's the thing that has happened.
Look, you just left New
tomorrow
York. Yeah.
We didn't do our part in California. We dropped
Yeah.
the ball a little
Listen.
bit. New York,
Listen.
you guys did good. We kind of fumbled over here a little
You guys
bit.
crushed it over there.
Yeah.
Listen, yeah, yeah. But I'm excited. I'm getting tested tomorrow. Lacey and I, we wanted to do it immediately when I got here, but these COVID tests are a little more difficult to schedule. We found out than we anticipated. So
Sure.
we maybe last week, and we found many places that were like, "Oh, we drive up," but almost all of them you needed an appointment to make an appointment first to be tested. So the next one out we've got was tomorrow, and we did this. I got here on Sunday, so it was like several days
Yeah.
to get an appointment.
Because you see stuff online, I feel like people I follow and stuff that say how easy it is. Is that just so that people won't get discouraged and they'll still do the test, do you think, maybe, or something?
No, because I thought the same thing. I thought it was going to be like, I'll just walk up or just drive up in the whip
Yes.
and get tested and keep it moving. And I think that might be true some places, but each LA website COVID testing like official page we found, the process was still the same, and the nearest available test was all tomorrow. We're all tomorrow.
I mean, I feel like it's a quicker process because you are making an appointment and all that kind of stuff. So then hopefully it's just you waiting in your car until the drive-through situation so that they're able to, move you through faster. I guess that's what but I think also since the numbers are going up, everybody's like, I'm going to get tested.
Right.
Yeah,
And,
that could be. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I'm just grateful that I'll be able to test.
Now, are you flying up to San Francisco?
Yeah.
How was the flight from New York here? Was it
The flight was
busy?
fine. So I flew Delta. The airport was very it was pretty calm.
Mm-hmm.
My flight was, I think it was probably as full as it could be, with the exception, like now they skip every middle seat.
Got it.
They have someone on either the window or the aisle seat. I had a connecting flight. So the first one I had the row all to myself, which I was very grateful for. And then the next one, there was somebody in the aisle. But what was interesting to me is that I flew Delta, and they now have started boarding the planes from the back and then working their way up to minimize the amount of passing.
Yes.
Have to pass each other. So they board by rows, not zones, but rows from the back of the plane moving forward. And then the in-flight service was also very different. So they came with these like little Lunchables. They looked like, it was like a bag.
Ooh.
It was like a mini bottle of water, a pack of Cheez-Its, and the Biscoff cookies in this little bag. And it was just like, here you go. And just passed them out. Like, get what you get and don't have a fit.
Everybody was having a hot lunch. Like it was like school again. Yeah.
It was literally like that. So, and everybody had to wear masks.
On the whole flight?
On the whole flight. Yeah, you have to wear masks. You have to wear masks to get in the airport.
Yes.
And so that was good. And if you didn't have a mask, they'd give you one. And yeah, that was pretty much it. It was I felt really uncomfortable though, but I just had to kind of put it out of my head and like keep my mask on and just say like, we're gonna be fine. But it is nerve-wracking.
Crazy.
It's It's wild because like I feel like even in the healthiest times I get sick flying, you know.
I
Yeah.
know.
It's just like guaranteed, you know, that you're getting something's going on. So it's scary when there's like this super bug out there.
Yeah.
And were you feeling claustrophobic with the mask, or was it or just the whole eeriness in general of
I didn't feel, I think I'm used to wearing a mask now.
yeah.
So I felt safe with it on.
Right.
It was annoying because it was a long, like two
Yeah.
flights. So I kind of went to the restroom in between and like took my mask off and kind of, massaged behind my ears and then back on for the next leg. But I felt safe with it on. And yeah, it's just one of
Nice.
those things where I just have to like put it out of my head and just
Yeah.
like, we're gonna be fine. I'm covered. I'm good. Hopefully,
Well,
fingers crossed, and I'm gonna go get tested too.
Yeah. Well, we're glad that you feel healthy and you got
Yeah.
here healthy.
Yes,
And that you're here now. Yeah.
Eric, I wanted to ask you, and we can go back and hear your story and how you started Black Mat, because I was going through your Instagram and you had a post on there that had a little bit about your story that was just quick, and it's really interesting. People would love to hear the whole thing. But before we even get into that, so being in the wellness industry and talking about mindfulness and kind of living in that, what is something you've seen that has been challenging people with social distancing and maybe with this kind of fear of like a virus going on? Is there something that comes up a lot, and is there something to combat that? I mean, you mentioned to us, I can't remember if we're recording or not, just like being able to get outside and do something that's for you and not just like running an errand, like you can go, figuring out a place to hike or something. I don't know, what are you seeing from a wellness standpoint?
I think I've seen two things. Like at the start of quarantining, I think people were just really restless and like really struggling to be inside. And I think from a wellness perspective, a lot of that, at least for me and lots of people who I interacted with, like so many of us went through phases of being able, like having to sit still with ourselves and like sit with shit that we normally can kind of put off somewhere else or like not think about because we are hustling and bustling and doing our thing. So I think many of us experienced the like process of going through having to sit with stuff that we needed to deal with. And some of that is like really uncomfortable. And then I think the other thing that I know for sure, and I went through that, what I'm describing are the things that I've gone through.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
me too.
same.
Yeah, some of us, I am us, right? Like I was dealing with. And then for me, being in a city like New York, where outside is kind of everything, and there are very few green spaces, and there are very few trees that are just readily accessible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Being inside or being in a city like New York New York City is really tough because you just miss that stuff. So many people were like, and it sounds superficial, but I think so many people were looking forward to vacations and going on trips because it's really nice to leave the city when you live there. And not being able to do that or not being able, I had in my apartment, there's a rooftop space. So I was still very fortunate to be able to like go practice, do yoga on the roof or get a little bit of sun if the weather was working with us. But for people who don't have that luxury, that privilege, it's like you're going stir crazy and just literally just being outside or seeing trees or being in grass, like smelling flowers, literally those things can really impact your mood and your experience. So those are like the two main things that I think that have been like in my world that I've been dealing with a lot and having in my students who take class, like stuff we talk about a lot.
Yeah. So you usually just tell them like try to get outside a little bit, even if it's for a little bit, just to like take in the sun and take in the air that's not your house.
Yeah, it's all of that. It's like first, acknowledge and feel that thing. You say it a lot of times in yoga, but it's really real. And I think it's part of the mindfulness practice that I want everyone to have. Is it like you got to sit with these feelings? Like you have to name a thing. Like I have to be able to say I am going fucking crazy because I need to go outside. And then that will let me know that I need to go. Like my next step you go outside versus lash out on somebody who's asking me a question, or, you know, like,
Right.
so being able to just feel what your feelings, I'm sad because of this, or I'm frustrated, or I'm really proud of this, is like what I want everyone to be able to access, because that will make us just better people, because we don't know how to move. But I think that's what I've been telling people is, first, feel your feelings. And then two, like, if you can do something about it, then do something about it. And if you can't, then like, what can you do? And do that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that tricky thing. It's like whatever you're going through, go through it, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
And we have to do that now because you can't fucking, you know, go out and drink or party or whatever. You just got to, it's whatever it is, sit and go through it. The distractions are gone now, you know.
Yeah.
You don't only look on your phone so much.
Oh man.
So let's go. Okay, so you grow up in Texas.
Yes.
So let's go. So walk us through it. How do you?
Let's go backwards and then forwards.
You want to go all the way back to, he went to Texas. Okay, let's take it back.
Yeah.
So I grew up in.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
Okay, I'm originally from a suburb of Dallas. It's called Cedar Hill, Texas. It's about let's say maybe 15, 20 minutes from the new Dallas Cowboys Stadium in Arlington.
Okay.
Southwest of Dallas. Went through high school in Texas. I went to undergrad in Atlanta. I went to Morehouse College. My background was in drama and English. I was a drama and English major in undergrad. And I also had, during my summers, I would intern teach with an organization that like college students and high school students could teach middle school students across the country. It was called Breakthrough Collaborative. And I interned as a summer teacher all throughout college. And then when I graduated, I joke now, but I like barely graduated. My real degree was in like socializing, right? So I didn't quite have my post undergrad plan set. And I knew I wasn't like auditioning for grad schools. I knew I wasn't going to get a MFA or anything at that point. So I went back to Texas, worked for that teaching internship, and as a director of it. And
what were you teaching?
Oh, back then I was during the summers I would teach like English and drama to middle schoolers. And then when I went back as a director, I was like directing the program. So
I see.
I would help hire our interns and kind of run the program during the school year and during the summertime.
Oh, great.
And that really kind of like is where I sunk my teeth into education and had like an understanding of the inequities in students of color, the students of color experience across the board. And after a few years, maybe like 2 years of working there, I wanted to like have a classroom. Like I wanted to be a teacher. And lots of my friends post undergrad moved to New York. Lots of them were teaching with different charter school networks here. So I told one of my best friends at the time that I was interested. Like 2 weeks later, I sample teach in New York. It happened really, really, really fast.
Wow. Yeah.
And like a month after, or like a couple of weeks after that, I got a call to say like I was offered a position as a teacher. So that year I moved to New York. I taught at an all boys charter school in Brooklyn for a couple of years, taught 5th grade reading, loved it. Started to do lots of like community building work, started to work with adults a lot, and started to do a lot of culture and vision setting for schools. And after I had a really, really rough final year in that school because we had a change in leadership and we just were not aligned. I'll just say that. But we
that's a very democratic way of saying that person sucked. We're
on good vibes. We're having good vibes here, but we weren't aligned, and it was very, very clear. And I tried to be aligned, but it was kind of like new leaders in town, and the old folks have to go, basically. Yeah. So we all left, and I started working with this. I tell long stories, by the way. So
we love it. Yeah.
This, just let me. But I'm trying to keep it brief. So then I started. My next job was the first time I started working with adults. So I went from like being in the classroom and kind of working with teachers and stuff at my school to I did a summer training. I worked with another organization that did summer school, and the teachers were fresh out of college / career changer. So it was kind of like Teach for America, but during the summertime. And it was in the city. So I was a director of that program. So I had like the new teachers who we were training. I had coaches, and I had like my coaches, and there was another position. I forget the title, but they did professional development each day.
Okay.
So that was my first taste of like stepping outside of the classroom, but working with adults to kind of magnify the impact.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, this is cool. I like this. I feel like I have a greater sense of purpose. And after that, I was a dean at an elementary school, also in,
Wow.
Shit.
yeah. Also, this all makes sense though. It all gets to the wellness part. I was in an elementary school, and the school was big on social emotional learning. And so lots of mindfulness stuff, lots of
Mhm.
talking about your feelings, lots of restorative practices, and that was the goal. But there was a lot of work. They were at the beginning stages of that, so it wasn't quite really working at all. They just
Yeah.
knew this is what they wanted to do,
Yeah.
but didn't know how to do it.
It was the idea, but it wasn't like in
Exactly.
place yet. Yeah.
Yes, or they had something in place, but it wasn't quite.
Yeah.
At all.
Hadn't been battle tested or troubleshot yet, or
Right,
just
right,
yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't working, honestly. So it was like the school knew they wanted to be different than other well-known, high-performing charter schools that are kind of infamous for being really militant and dehumanizing the kids.
Yes.
It was like the opposite of that. But so far on the other side of the spectrum, like the kids were just kind of doing whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Teachers didn't know how to correct them without being punitive.
Yeah.
So that's also a very nice way to say it was a mess. It was
Sure.
a hot
Yeah.
mess when I got to
That
the
is rough. I watch some, when I have a 3-year-old boy, and I watch, other people parent their kids in that kind of style where they're like, well, they feel like this. I'm like, no, they don't. Just get them out of my face right now.
right.
Like, there's no reason he's pulling my son's hair. Just get his hands out. It's like, maybe that's what he's feeling. I'm like, no,
Not on my child.
yeah.
Yeah. So
But
there was
yeah.
lots of that actually. That's hilarious. There was lots of that at the school, right?
Shit.
So
Sure.
my role I had to kind of diffuse kids on a kid level who's getting their hair pulled and the one who's pulling the hair, the teachers in the room, like having to coach them on like, all right, so this is what you need to do. And then the parents who was like, yo, this kid is pulling my kid's hair.
Yeah.
The mothers
Yeah.
can be real aggressive when it comes to their kids. They're like, what's going on? What's the punishment? What you gonna do? How you gonna keep this kid from, hitting my child, keeping my child safe?
Eric,
Right.
that sounds like a nightmare. Being in the position that you're in.
Yeah.
So that's like the anti-highlight reel, right?
Yeah,
Like that's
right.
the highlight reel of the worst things.
Yeah.
There are also wonderful things that happen when you work in schools.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's just tough if you don't have, if you inherit like a broken system and then you have to pick up
Yeah.
the pieces and you're limited in what you can do. Just knowing how parents can be and how intense that school stuff can be. I mean,
which is
that's
literally what also, like, I can't take all the credit because this is literally what every educator is doing right now in the country, like picking up all these broken pieces and trying to figure out how to make it work on Zoom and Google
Yeah.
Class. But,
Right. Yeah. Making it work on Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah. So those were like some of the things that I had to deal with, which one made me realize I need some kind of practice for myself to kind of de-stress from everybody's stuff.
Right.
And then 2, it made me realize how important and how helpful mindfulness is in kind of conflict resolution.
yeah.
Across the board, with little babies to whole adults who, can oftentimes be the most hot-headed of any combo. So realizing how important mindfulness is, kind of using it because we were social emotional learning school, so using it kind of daily in terms of conflict resolution and preventative, like classroom management and all that stuff, and building a positive school culture, it just kind of became second nature. And it was also difficult because when I would try to coach teachers to do this kind of stuff like mindfulness, deep breaths and things in the classrooms, they weren't comfortable with it a lot of times, which I get because people feel like, I'm not like a yogi person. I don't have these skills.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
like I don't sound like that when I'm talking, so I can't like be like sit down and then also like take a deep breath.
Yeah.
That's not. It doesn't work in the same way. So part of it kind of transitioned to trying to coach people up to like say you can be your regular self and still be mindful. But moving forward, unfortunately, that school closed. And it was a really, really traumatic year in which it was closing because with charter schools, you have to get your charter renewed. So it's like basically like your document saying this is who we are, this is what we're gonna do and how we're gonna do it. And then the authorizer from the state comes either yearly or every 3 or 5 years, however long your charter is, to say like, all right, this is what you said you would do. This is you're doing it or no. In our case, we were trying to. Anyway, that's a long story. But long story short, school has closed, and we had to kind of displace our kids and make sure that everybody got into a good school.
Right.
And teachers didn't have a job next year, so they were also interviewing, and it was another mess at the end of the year. At the end of that year, so I was really like, yo, I gotta go to yoga every single day. As a way to like keep my head on and to de-stress. And it was also, in retrospect, a little bit of an escape from kind of like everything that was happening.
But while that was all happening, were you already connected to doing yoga? Were you already a yoga practicer?
I had gone a couple of times in my life, but not for real. I didn't have like a serious practice until I was working at the school. And one spring break, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go every day during the spring break since I'm still here. And then I developed a habit. And then when the school year got crazy, then I was like, oh yeah, this isn't recreation. This is like my lifesaver.
Yeah.
So I was, but then I built a serious practice that year.
Right. When things got real stressful and real crazy.
Real stressful in these streets. But then the other thing is that, which is really the kind of tipping point for me, is that in these yoga studios, and New York is a super saturated area, just like LA. And, like it's a very saturated yoga, like arena or wellness arena, but there are so few Black people that you see taking class or teaching the class. Mm-hmm. So there were lots of hurdles that I felt like I had to personally overcome to practice, especially in places that I would like try out. So I ended up finding a home studio that I felt really comfortable in. But going to different studios as a Black person, like I experienced things that I know other people, especially the white people in the room, did not experience.
Right.
Even if the smallest little thing, like the smallest microaggression, like this kind of pseudo surprise that I would, or like the pseudo welcome or kindness that I would get from the front desk people coming into a studio, that I had to kind of side eye, like, why are you so excited to see me here?
Yeah.
And like, you've given me this overly warm greeting that you haven't extended to anyone else. And you're asking me questions like, is this your first time ever taking yoga? Like, just over helpful, over explaining things. I'm like, girl, yes, I have. I do yoga, I get it. And not hearing those same questions being asked of the other people, even if it is their first time to the studio. So like little things like that were like big things. And that can sound trivial if you've never experienced something like that, where you've had to question whether or not you're being treated differently. Yeah. But for me, it was like one of those things that I would instantly be triggered, like, oh shit, this is one of those studios.
One of those studios, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of those. I call when I walk into the place where it feels like they're definitely A, haven't seen somebody like me in there before, or B, are like, what's this Asian-ish looking guy doing in here? Yeah. It's like, oh, this is a boutique, whatever it is. It's like, this is a boutique.
Yeah. So those are some of the things that like really kind of would turn me off about I just have all these little things in front of me that I want to keep putting in my hands.
Yeah.
Like a key and a lighter. Like, okay, let me just
use them. You can do props. It's
Hey,
fine.
you can do
Bring
it.
the
That's
props
fine.
out.
Yeah. You have a puppet show in a minute. Yeah.
I have this paper towel. I keep surprising you with the things
I was just gonna say, obviously I haven't had to deal with the same stuff, but something that comes up on the show a lot is people that aren't part of marginalized groups will say, I want to try yoga, but I want to be anonymous. I don't want them to be focusing on me or paying any extra attention. So I'm not going to go because I feel, shy or embarrassed or whatever. So you take that and then you add what you experienced on top of it. It sucks. It's like the energy you got to put up to be like, hi, yes, thank you, great.
Go. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's nerve energy.
It is. And I think I've experienced both sides of that spectrum, from like this super niceness to just like not being acknowledged at all.
Right.
So I've seen all of it. And I've even had people who have said that, some of my friends have even said like people have moved their mats away from them, like in studio. So like I've heard all of these really extreme cases, and thank goodness I've never experienced anything very overt.
Yeah.
But I had lots of experiences that made me question why I had that. And that was really important to me. So after a while, and then I moved. So that was like New York.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to get out of New York for a minute. So I was like, lots of stuff going on, school closed, like life over, experienced all this trauma. I need to move back home, closer to my family. My dad had a health scare that year also. And I was like, I just need to kind of reconnect, go back home for a little while.
Sure.
And I moved to Houston, Texas. And that's about a 4 or 5 hour drive from Dallas.
Yeah.
And so, but it was much closer. I had like an apartment that I loved. I had space. I had like the things that many people take for granted.
Especially moving from New York.
New York. Yeah.
Things like a washer and dryer in your apartment, or like a balcony, or like central AC and heat.
Man. Yeah.
Right.
Rooms to like do things in and live.
Stuff that works. That works.
Things that work. Yeah.
When you're not compromising with a railroad apartment in New York. Yeah.
It was amazing coming back, or going back to the South and having a beautiful space that would have been so expensive and unaffordable if it were the same thing in New York. But I was in another school. This time I had followed a former instructional coach who was the principal of a school in Houston, also a charter school, and was like, yo, you're doing all of these things that we actually need here. Just come. I interviewed, got the job, was excited. So this was a high school. So I had gone from teaching middle school to being a dean at an elementary school to doing the same thing, but for older students and teachers. I was really excited about it. The takeaway from this Houston chapter is that I realized that I was also not aligned with this school or system or leader.
Right.
I experienced a very similar situation that I did when I was having lots of difficulty in the school that closed, but kind of on the opposite end. So it was like we were doing the things I didn't believe in terms of, working with students and families. And it was awful, because it was like, I have always loved working in schools. And I hated that school year. Loved Houston, but like hated going to work because I didn't believe in the things that I was doing at all.
Yeah.
And I was like, I gotta be done with this. Like, I can't do this another year. And moved back at the end of last year to Harlem. I was in Brooklyn previously, but I moved to Harlem with my partner. And I was like, I can't be in another school right now. This has been too much, but I am interested in teaching in a different way. And my yoga practice was the thing that sustained me throughout these last couple of years. And was the thing that like was the gift and the curse, because I kept having to find communities where I felt safe.
Right.
And it was just too much. So I
Was it
figured that
hard?
there
Was it hard in Houston to find a studio that you really felt comfortable in?
it was not as hard. Uh, I found a studio that I ended up really liking. But then like weird stuff happened at the end that, well, I thought it was personally weird, but it was like the perfect kind of punctuation to that year. It was like, yeah, I'm out.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like that's it. I'm good. But I did really enjoy that studio. It was a hot yoga studio. So it was a really nice, like intense. It felt like a workout and a yoga, like
Yeah.
rest.
So then you moved to Harlem and are like, I'm not gonna do a school. Fuck school. I mean, school's great, but I'm not gonna mess with it.
Right now. Yeah. Not fuck school per se, but like,
yeah,
I'm not finna be.
yeah.
So I was looking at, so I wanted to take a yoga teacher training program before leaving Houston at that studio. And it didn't end up happening. And I asked that what did end up happening was I asked for like a scholarship to the yoga teacher training, because these things are like $4,000. They can range from like $2,000 to $4,000 depending on where you're going.
It's like buying a car. I mean, it's fucking expensive.
Yeah, it really is. And I was like, there are not lots of people of color on your staff. Like, I know you talk about being an inclusive studio. Like, many studios also have scholarships for people of color. One of my really good friends who's in LA, she started a scholarship program for teachers of color at a yoga studio here, where she was like integral in founding it and received that scholarship. So she was like, it's an ask, try it out. So I tried it, and I asked and, stated my reason. And if you aren't aware, like, yoga is a very white, middle class, wealthy woman activity, right? Just data alone suggests that these are the people who do yoga the most in America.
Right.
I was like, yeah, let's, what's up? Like, what's up on the scholarship? I asked more eloquently than that, but they kind of gave me this very yoga answer that was like, thank you for this big ask, and we're really happy that you feel empowered to use your voice and to speak on things that matter to you. And I was like, right, yeah, good. And then like, this is what we thought about. If you could bring 2 people to take the training, then we can provide you a full scholarship for yours.
Wow. like participate in a pyramid scheme or something.
Yeah.
But the way that it was phrased was so nice that it took me to understand what was being said. Like, but it was the moment, just like you said, like, so you want me to, I'm like, so I'm basically pimping my friend so I can get my yoga for free.
Yeah.
Because I have friends ready to drop like $4,000 on 6 weeks to do, like, what, girl?
Yeah. Listen,
the yoga-fied hustle.
Yeah.
Right.
We love the idea of you taking this for free. Is there any chance you can ask your friends for $8,000 and then we'll cover you?
Yeah. You fill this class and then you can, sure.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, nah. So I programmed in New York, and I was looking for the least expensive one, honestly, and found one that I really liked, and it was wonderful. It's Three Sisters Yoga. It's just a yoga teacher training studio. So it's not like a yoga studio where they have classes all the time. It's specifically just to train yoga teachers. And really found community and was able to like reconcile lots of things during my experience. And it really was great. And I did like this month-long intensive. So it was 6 to 6. No, I just told a lie. It was 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And then I have my weekends, and it was 4 weeks. And it was great. I really enjoyed it and needed it to be like fast and like one and done.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to space it out over months. I just wanted to get through it so I could start teaching.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard because you can't work when you're doing it. I mean, it's like you got to just, make a sacrifice and get in and get the instruction and then get out of there,
Yeah. And that was the only reason why I was able to do it, was because I had some support at home. But if I didn't have it, then I would have done the weekend version of it. But the weekend version was just like so much commitment at the end of it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Who knows where I'll be in 5 years,
Yeah.
Spacing this thing off.
Yeah. So I did that this year 2019, August of 2019 is when I did my intensive. And September 2019 is when I launched Black Mat. And really my mission is really to serve people who feel like I felt in wellness spaces.
Yeah.
Right? So Black, queer, people of color, white people who feel marginalized in the yoga space, but particularly people of color who feel marginalized or have experienced hurt in the wellness world, or feel like, not flexible, or just don't feel like they can access the practice for whatever reason, whether it's not for them, they're not white, whatever the case is. It's like, this is for you. Everybody, as long as you can breathe, you can do yoga. Don't worry so much about what you look like, but worry about like what your breathing is like. Worry about how you feel versus how you look, and you'll be cool. So that's really kind of the ethos behind Black Mat, is like, bring your whole self to your mat, fall in love on the mat, and then take these lessons with you when you leave the mat, and just be a good person in the world.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds awesome. And very relatable. I mean, especially because, and especially I've taken a couple of yoga classes. The idea of it and the practice of it is great, but the community of it, I just don't feel
corny?
like I fit in. It just doesn't feel like I fit in. Like, and the ones that I fit in more are the ones that feel like they're workout yoga, like power, core power, like, whatever, where it's just like it's like, this is not yoga. This is like, I'm doing like basically a burpee, like it's which I'm fine doing otherwise, but that's not why I'm there. I want to feel that community of, the classes that I was surprisingly felt the most comfortable in was taking these prenatal yoga classes with my pregnant wife. Because they were not paying attention to me. Everybody was there to like really pay attention to breathing and moving, like, with intention, so that nobody is getting hurt. And like the way it was set up, I'm like, how come this is just not for everybody?
Well, it's a pretty wild thing, Eric, and you could probably speak to this more, but I think somewhere along those lines, when it was kind of being introduced in the States, it got co-opted as this kind of status thing for like, for like money and, these kind of wealthy, affluent neighborhoods. The first time I really took a class, I was a personal trainer, and I was living in LA, and I started training people in Brentwood. It's a really nice, upscale
assholes. Bunch of assholes.
Bunch of rich assholes live out there.
Bunch of rich white assholes around. Those neighborhoods, LA.
Yeah. But it was I took a class there at a yoga studio, and like it had only, like, you just see it in movies. This is like 15 years ago. Like you'd see it in movies, or it would be like a punchline like yoga. But I took it there and it was like, I got a workout, and I thought, oh man, this is amazing. But it was literally only like middle-aged white women taking the class. And it was like a big, it was like a show-off thing, like a kind of SUV soccer mom type thing, you know? And I would tell people like, hey, do you ever do yoga? Nobody really even knew what it was, but this is like the only, or if you did find somebody that did, they had access to it in some kind of similar neighborhood somewhere else. So yeah. And then it's like a contest to see who's got the nicest yoga clothes, all that kind of shit. And that's what it's like. It's so contra to what yoga is.
Right.
And
that's how like still a lot of studios feel like, to me, like outside of taking that prenatal like the teachers for that felt so supportive and so focused on every student, where when I've taken classes at other studios, it either feels like like a CrossFit gym where it's just like you have to do it hard, and if you do it hard, then everybody respects you, or it's like 5 women talking to the teacher. They're all kind of gossiping, and then they're like,
Yeah.
"Oops, we got to start," and then it's like kind of for them. It's for those like 5 women, and they can kind of giggle through certain things, or like they walk by, and then it feels
Exclusive.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a lot to want to try. And if you have all these fucking barriers up against you, people just aren't going to do it. They're not going to fucking do it. And that's a bummer, because then you miss out. These people miss out on what could be potential. Like for you, like it saved your life, going through all the shit that you were going through,
Yeah. And have had those same experiences. Right. And I think that's like the crazy thing about community is that, especially in places like in wellness, where you might have a following, like a teacher might have a following, or you might have your favorite teacher that you like to, chop it up with before or after class. People who are new to that, like, it reads as like, oh, there's an in crowd and I'm on the outside, right?
Yes.
Unless the teacher or somebody in the class makes an effort to greet you or acknowledge you in some way, which people have done with me in classes, like said hello, or like, oh, hey, what's your name, next to the mat. Like, those are the experiences where you feel like, oh, okay, yoga is cool. Like, this nice person spoke to me next to my mat, or the teacher asked my name and like came to introduce and asked if I had any questions or injuries or something. Like, those are the things that bring you in community, make you feel welcome. So in the absence of that, when you see it happening but not happening to you or with you, are those kind of like things that make you wonder, like, well, shit, like, I guess I'm not a cool kid. And like throw race into it when you are the only person, or any kind of identity marker when you are the only one that you can see visibly of that identity in any space. It can bring anxiety in that same like exclusive feel where you are aware of your otherness really quickly. And that's something that is like difficult when you're trying to meditate or not worry about how you are showing up. You have to consistently worry about how you're showing up because of who's in the room. So
shit's hard enough as it is.
So then when Black Mat Yoga, when you started it in September of 2019, and your focus was that your students, the people started practicing with you, what were their main hiccups that they kind of had to get over in order to start practicing regularly? Were there like, because I feel like now that that's the inviting thing, which I'm happy about, then I'm just like, then all of the other stuff, it's like, oh, now I'm accepted. Okay, well, I'm not flexible, or whatever. Like,
that's probably the biggest thing that I hear is like, I'm not flexible. I can't do all this stuff.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest thing, is like people feel really intimidated because they're not flexible. And I saw this meme that was really funny. It was like yoga teacher, or it was like student to teacher, I'm not flexible. And then the teacher was like, you mean mentally or physically? And then the student was like, oh. But I think about that too, like that. I mean, that's a real concern, because there is a level of like mobility you have to have in order to practice the physical yoga, like yoga asana is what it's called, like the physical movements. But really, my breakthrough happened is when I stopped worrying about the poses and really started connecting with my breath. That's when I realized, like, when I started focusing on that, then the body stuff just came. And I think yoga is great and challenging for lots of people in the sense that you don't see progress as quickly as you see it with like working out. Maybe like you can do one workout in the gym and look in the mirror and see a whole different body, right? You're like, oh, I'm like, my muscles are
pumped, right? Yeah.
It may or may not be true, but you can like be staring in the mirror, like flexing, like feeling yourself after a good workout in the gym. Yoga is not always that way. Like, it might be maybe one day, but really it's like I do this stuff that seems really uncomfortable potentially, and then maybe a month after doing it, you're like, oh shit, I can touch my toes now, or like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
wow, I I can hold this pose
Yeah.
and I can do it before, and it's
Right.
not so direct and it's not so pronounced. That change is gradual and it'll come up, when you don't cuss somebody out for cutting you off, or when you
Oh
like take
yeah.
a breath with your kids. It's like it
Yes.
shows up in different ways. It's not like gold star for you at the end of the day. And that can be like the benefit, one of the benefits, and one of the really challenging parts about yoga is you don't get that like immediate gratification other than feeling like very relaxed when you come out of a class.
Right.
If that's your experience in the class.
we
Oh,
pulled
man.
we pulled this picture of Eric, and I was jealous, man. You're like leaning down, like stretching
Oh,
over your foot, and I was like, oh man, fucking that looks like you just look like you feel great, like hamstrings flexible, like everything
yeah.
balanced. Yeah, I was so
Yeah,
jealous of it, man.
that's funny. Really, it's because I don't really know what to do with my face when I'm taking pictures. It's like the only thing that really translates 100% of the time is a smile. So like I'm always smiling in pictures because otherwise I look like I'm either trying too hard to be sexy or like angry or just kind of like in between words. Like so I just have to smile. So it looks so funny.
But the joy and the freedom of inside your body, it definitely did come through for sure.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
good. Well, I received that. Thank you.
So
yeah, go ahead.
so the kind of yoga that you're into, is it like a vinyasa flow? Is that kind of what you teach? So, and do you use music? Do you go no music? How do you like to structure a class?
Yep, I'm a vinyasa teacher.
Okay.
So very like that's my comfort zone, and I'm also kind of starting to push myself to have some more restorative offerings,
Okay.
like yoga and restorative yoga. So the vinyasa yoga, if you are not familiar, is like characterized by that like chaturanga sequence. So the kind of downward, the half plank or the plank to push up, and then the upward facing dog, and then the downward facing dog. Those three moves are like the vinyasa, and like doing that in between your phrases or in between certain poses is like a signature vinyasa style class. And in the fact that you're marrying one breath per movement. So like
One breath per movement.
Yeah, you move on an inhale, do something else on an exhale. So you're really trying to sync your breath and your movements, and then that vinyasa in between the moves, or that flow you'll hear it called in between the moves, is what makes that style. And then the restorative is very much kind of like using props, pillows, and blankets and stuff to really get a good stretch. It's less about the power and more about like holding poses for a couple of minutes and really seeing the effect of holding something for a really long time with lots of support. So those are the two main classes or kinds of yoga that I teach, but I teach different classes that have different offerings. So there were times where I stopped going to church and would go to yoga instead. And then like pray during my, like use my time, my practice to try to connect with God closer.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Cool.
This can be yoga too. And then there were some times on Sundays where I would play gospel music and like have like a church experience or a worship experience, but use yoga to do it. So I teach a class like that on Sundays. And then on Wednesdays, I teach a happy hour class. I'm teaching it tomorrow. I took some time off since I've been traveling, but tomorrow I'm teaching a happy hour class. And that one is it's a quicker flow and a poppin' playlist. So it's very R&B. I'm a very R&B type person. So I definitely use music to kind of create a vibe. And then that one I like also sit with folks afterwards and we like toast and we have like happy hour and like kind of talk shit just like this. Or talk about whatever comes up for people. And that started during the quarantine out of like my need to have some kind of
Yeah.
Sure.
I was like, hey, we're gonna do yoga and then we're going to sit and drink together and like talk and be friends. And you just kind of have to do that if you take this class.
Yoga happy hour sounds amazing.
It's popping because we'll like cheers in the camera and then right. I mean, what else do you do?
Yeah.
When Insecure was on, I'm a huge Insecure on HBO fan. So they were like Insecure themed weeks where we would talk about like friendship dynamics. Like, so what's going on?
Great.
What do you think's going to happen here? Or like, if you were a character on the show, who would you be and why? Or like, yeah, some really good happy
Oh,
hour.
that's fun.
Really
Yeah. I mean,
happen.
you're creating a community, man. Yeah.
Essentially, yeah. And it feels really good because it's, you don't have to worry about, and with quarantine is like you can do this at home. So like you're in your house and you're making community with people that are like similar, and you don't have to worry about this. You might have worries, but they're not the same things you're worrying about when you're in a studio.
Yeah.
Like you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man. It's funny. Some of the people on YouTube, they're saying that that the slow progress in yoga is like agonizing and hard to like stay focused and want to do. And then somebody just wrote, "Ooh, happy hour yoga. Well, I would convert to do that." So it's funny. Yeah.
Perfect.
So we'll make sure that we get your info out on this too, so that people. So how are the classes structured before the quarantine happened? Were you doing it at a certain studio, and then now that you're probably doing all of it by Zoom, is it like a class of people, or is it one-on-one training, or is it a mix of both? Or
it's a mix. So prior to quarantine, I was not teaching in one set space, but I would use different spaces to do kind of pop-up classes.
I see.
Yeah. And I also did private sessions where I would either travel to the person or they would come to me.
Mhm.
Those are like private lessons, like one-on-ones. And
Right.
then post quarantine, and I also taught in yoga studios. So I
Okay.
taught 2 different studios, and then one yoga company that had contracts with like luxury apartment buildings in the city, where I just show up, teach a class, and then go to another one.
Oh, I see.
Very much like a gig. I was just kind of like running all around the city. It was actually quite exhausting, and I didn't realize how much, how physically tiring that would be. That kind of like hustle and bustle to studio,
Yeah.
the train and walking and all that stuff.
I mean, it's like you're self-employed and running a business, and then like also, yeah, it's like a
Right.
freelance
And just
instructor.
you're not just cruising in there for 5 minutes. It's like you got to give a lot of yourself.
Yeah.
When you're doing
Like, yeah, it's like this energy exchange. It's all this stuff. And there are times you can go like autopilot a little bit, but also it's still teaching for an
Still
hour.
a lot.
Your voice and like,
Hey, you still got to go from one place, get on the fucking N train, realize that shit is all fucked up. So then you have to, switch, and then get there a little bit later than you were planning on it, and then get in the mindset to teach yoga. It's like,
Eugene, you're speaking my heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was, yes, I feel so seen.
Dude.
Yes. And then still being like cool and like, oh, welcome to class. Still.
Oh.
Because you can't be the frantic yoga teacher coming in fucking up everybody's vibe. Right? You can't.
Man,
you just gotta.
I miss living in New York, but there are aspects to that I just remember. I used to live in Jackson. I lived in Jackson Heights for a lot of my time there. But I lived in New York for like 12 years, something like that. But man, there were times where you'd take the train in, and it'd be like, okay, I'm taking the train in. For some reason, it takes not some reason, but just as per usual, it takes forever. Some other shit happens.
Yeah.
And I get to like a commercial audition for like Snickers, walk in there. I'm in there for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it's like heading back home. I'm like, what the I got to get in a good place where it looks like I'm excited about the Snickers. And then I got to get back on the train. This is bananas.
Having to work. I've had it like where just visiting friends and stuff, and it's been the hardest 6 hours of my life just trying to get to see my friends or whatever it is I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine having to fucking work after that.
I know.
It's like I need a break from traveling.
So that was one thing that I learned like during quarantine was like, oh wow, like teaching the yoga is not what makes me tired.
It's the travel.
It's the
commute. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was how classes were before. I was all over the place. And then now I teach on Zoom, and I had a set class schedule until the summer came. I also started to do some kind of consulting work. I started with my aunt's company. We did what started as just a mindfulness practice for some of her colleagues, ended up turning into a company-wide facilitation of how to build trust within the organization in response to the George Floyd killing and like everything since. So we've kind of been doing a lot of like anti-racist work, using my background in education and anti-racism to kind of figure out a game plan for this company and facilitating these these meaningful and courageous conversations within. So I've been so my schedule the last couple of weeks has been a little different because I've been prioritizing that and working with some other schools. And, but since quarantine has happened, I teach online. Schedule's a little different, but describe some of those classes. And then I have another workout class or another yoga class. It's Vibes and Vinyasa. And that's like a very like rap, hip hop turned up playlist.
Oh,
and it's more of that kind of like workout.
Yes.
It's still very much yoga. It's not all the way like hit, or it's not a core power, but it's definitely a little bit more athletic and quicker pace versus the relaxing yoga. But it's more characterized by the playlist and a couple of like a little bit more athleticism in the
movement.
A very vigorous practice or flow.
It's vigorous. It is vigorous, but it's still beginner friendly. Although I'm learning, I don't quite know what that is because I'll think I'm like turning the notch down, and people are like, I'm out here sweating like I'm outside, and I was like, oh, okay, good information to have. Let me dial it back a little bit more.
Amazing.
But yeah, those are the different kinds of classes I teach, and it is kind of. It's not totally self-serving because I do it because it's what I enjoy doing, but people also like it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Absolutely.
Good. We're all winning here.
Yeah. And I mean, especially, being able to be a voice and also be an instructor for, us that are, people of color and people that, need, I don't know, just love that support and need that support is just great. And it's needed because I can't, even if yoga studios ever open up out here again, but when they do, it would take a while for that to be a comfortable thing. So, hopefully now, people are more open to it, but the fact that your practice is there already and you can already do it from home is just amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm so grateful that I'm still able to like teach here. Like, I can just computer open and say like, okay, I'm teaching a class. I had 2 classes that I had kind of contracted out that were on Monday afternoons. And then I teach for another studio. It's at noon Eastern time, but it's 9 a.m. here on Thursday. So it's, it's like I can work remotely. It's really strange. I've never had this kind of freedom like in my life professionally, like in a school, having to be there, like, before the sun comes up to staying there until it goes down. Oftentimes I'm just like, I can just be wherever and open a computer and teach a class. Or I cannot. So it's really nice.
I have 2 questions. So what would be your dream, when all this calms down? Would you want to open your own studio? Would you want to have like franchise, like multiple studios? And then 2, and this gets into like a whole bigger discussion, and and there's no easy answer to it, but is there anything, given what you're trying to do, that people that have some power and influence in wellness, is there some steps that they could take, or like the first steps they have to take that they could take to be more inclusive or to improve their representation, in that industry?
Yeah.
So two big questions. The first, with no easy answer, but the first one, as far as what you would want to do, like, what's your dream, like long term?
I would love, and I don't know where this would be, but I would love an event space. So I think the
that's cool
truth is that I think the yoga studio model is like a broken system, and fingers crossed that they will still be able to survive. But I think that, you hear all the time that it's really difficult for studios to stay open. And we can see that now because they're so reliant on each membership to pay the bills and the teachers. And it's just a really hard thing to do really well, and not be completely dependent on your membership.
Yeah.
I would love to have, and this might change too if we start having, or if we never have in-person events again, I don't know. But I would love to have a space that is used as a yoga studio and a space that you can rent for things. And during the day, it would be like this, have a really specific aesthetic, like design aesthetic. So it would be this very like boho luxe. It would feel like a boutique kind of fitness studio or yoga studio, like this luxe boho, very Black feeling space. And I say Black in that like it is clear that there's like Black representation here.
Yeah.
But also very dope. So like I think a lot of times when we go into spaces that we like that are very welcoming, they have a very like soulful vibes. And I think that's what we love about them. So that's what I mean by like a very Black space. Just like a dope vibe that's like feels very kind of high end, but not exclusive, like you don't belong. Just like when you go to a night, I feel like there's a difference when you go to a nice place and you're like, oh, this is like too nice, this is too stuffy. And you go to a nice place and you're like, oh, okay, like I can see myself here, I belong here.
Yes.
I want like if that feel like I'm excited to go to this place because it is nice, not like I can't go here because I'm not good or it's too nice.
It's like when you check into a hotel that you paid a good amount for, but you went like, okay, this is what,
It's the like, that's it.
Like a house that's too nice. It feels like a museum. Like it doesn't feel like a home where you would want to live. You know? Yeah.
So I would want it to have those vibes. In the daytime when it operates, it'd be like yoga studio, little coffee shop, plant store, like all the things.
Yeah.
And then it could also be rented out for like dinners and events and community like things, and very active in like social progress.
Right.
Community space that is very much nice and functional and versatile. That's what I would really love to have. And the work would be yoga classes. I would also do like consulting work, or like there'd be like lots of like Black Mat could be the umbrella, and then the services that we provide could be lots of different things.
Right.
From wellness to like consulting to education to all those things.
That's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And then the second question.
This is a hard question. It's a bullshit thing to lay on you too, but I figure while you're here and, you know, having worked in all, you know, all sides of it, you know, I don't know. It's hard.
I think what I'm seeing the most, so since all of this has happened, since the protest started, I've had an influx of like, probably like 700 or 800 like white followers on both of my pages. And for me, like it's a very small, for me, a one person kind of show, that's a really big influx in the last like month or so. And it feels great. And it also feels a little weird to me because I think what so many people of color who are in any industry really are experiencing is this kind of like white gaze and this desire to now be really supportive of everything that has not been supportive for as long as we know. So for me, it's this kind of like weird space of like being like, okay, I guess this is what change kind of looks like, and accepting that, and also being really clear about like not being distracted in terms of like what also really needs to happen, like the question that you're asking. Like visibility is like nice and it's kind of like level one of inclusion, but like what are the things that are actually wrong here, right? Like people of color and like people who have brands that are people of color in the wellness world just don't get the type of support financially, don't get the type of like access to certain people or certain platforms. And this is a trend, right? People of color have under one thing that's super common, especially right now, is that brands want to hear Black voices and want Black people to like be on their platforms, but don't want to pay them. right? Like don't want to don't
Want
want
to
to
relinquish any ownership of the brand or anything. It's just, yeah,
yeah. So I
yeah.
think, the one answer to the question that is like also a very large answer is like, I think everybody needs to kind of just take a minute and take a breath and then
Mhm.
see like what ways are we causing harm and how can we fix it. And I think the most extreme thing that people are experiencing is like, I have to give up my company, or like I have to,
Yeah.
like I think in the beauty industry, there was this pull up campaign where everybody had to post like their diversity makeup from top to bottom in the organization. Stuff like that is like shit. Everyone has to be aware of where they are and then like make a plan from there. So maybe it doesn't mean like you just have to break your company in half and give it to every person of color that you know, or like in tiny pieces, but maybe it means like we're going to do X, Y, and Z when we market, when we promote. We're going to make sure that we pull in someone outside of the organization or promote someone within the organization to do what we haven't been doing previously. I think it's just like doing your work, right? Like
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
figuring out where you are as an organization and like how can you be better at what you're doing, and how can you include as many voices that are unlike your own, and how honest can you be with yourself and your community, because that is oftentimes the most difficult. And I think what I've experienced with working with white people who are coming into a new realization right now and
Mhm.
challenging and unlearning things is like there's this moment where they're like, oh my gosh, I have done all of these awful things to Black people and people of color, and I don't know what to do next. Or I'm scared that I've done all of these awful things and I don't know what to do next. So I think just step one is be really honest with where you are in this journey and where you want to go. And then step two is like figuring out how you can include the voices of the people that you want to like atone for.
Right.
How can you do that with them in a way that doesn't put all the work on them, but
Right.
also in a way that includes them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really like a large answer
No, but
for
it's,
that, but I think those are the key things.
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. Even just thinking about this stuff now, and Eugene and I doing this show, and most of the people we've had on is comedy, comedy people or actors and that kind of stuff. And but in the health and wellness, which we kind of circle around because we're doing this show, I just stopped to think like, how many people do I know of color that are getting to represent the health and wellness and self-care and all that stuff. And there's not there's not an industry there. There's not a lot of people. And there's something going on with that,
Yeah.
because it's certain, I mean, yeah. So it was just something that like, people talk about privilege and me being able to enjoy my white privilege. I haven't thought about it. I just didn't even, it wasn't something that was on my mind. It wasn't a barrier to me. I never felt like I wasn't represented. And so now just like being able to look at that and see like, oh shit. So then, what can we do? Like, how can we remedy that? How can we give voice to people, and expand it? Because everybody wins then,
Yeah.
yeah, get access. I got access to you today, so that's, yeah. And so yeah, that was good. That's great. I appreciate that. I know it's a lot to lay on you for like, giving you 5 minutes to answer this question,
Guess what? Ryan just asks all of these questions all the time, and it's fucking tiring.
But the thing about it is like I enjoy these kinds of questions. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm deep all the time, so this is fine. Like, like my Lacey and I, my cousin, we joke. I have another friend named Zuri, who Lacey knows, also, and Zuri and I can sit and talk like we have this joke where we're like, yeah, we're just kind of manifesting our divine energies to get like we can talk about this fluffy stuff, this stuff that feels real fake to people, like very yoga or like super deep all the time. Like I actually love it. So you can ask me all the questions.
That's great. Well,
real quick. So Lacey, where do you stand on, Lacey likes to show her back bends. She's got a good back bend. Is she executing that move properly?
We execute them differently. So
you execute them different. Okay.
Lacey has a background in like cheer and kind of gymnastics.
Cheer, right.
So
Texas.
Yes,
Yeah.
Texas
Yeah.
chick. So I took that photo that she posted recently, and she
Yeah.
took some photos of me too. But her back bend is like she gets into it from standing up, and
Right.
I get into mine from like laying down on the ground and lifting up. And
Okay.
it was so funny because we had this moment where she was like, "Oh, I'll help, I'll spot you," and I'm like, "No, I'm uncomfortable with that. I have to do it in my yoga way. Like,
Yeah.
I have to lay on the ground and lift up. I don't want to injure myself. My body is my instrument." Like all that stuff. I was like, I can't get into it this way. So they're just different. Hers
Yeah.
is more cheer and stunts, and mine is like
Yeah.
inhale up.
Right.
Hey.
Totally. She talked about the cheer on the show, and I've seen her do the back bend on stage, like on stage, you know, I mean, she can athletically get into it.
Trick.
Yeah. Yeah.
She does. She's got some party tricks.
Yeah.
Oh, but how are what's a good way to, if people want to take a class from you or sign up for the happy hour yoga? What
Yes.
what's so how is a good way to contact you and and possibly take a class or something?
Best way is to follow me on Instagram. It's Black Mat Yoga NYC on Instagram, and there's a link in my bio where you can go to the website. You can log on or register for online classes. You can buy packages for like private yoga if you want to kind of have some of those like one-on-one sessions. The classes are typically really intimate and small. They're usually from like 3 to 10 people. So it's pretty like a very kind of intimate experience. But that's the best way is through Instagram. And I try to post. My class schedule is a little inconsistent right now because I'm kind of in this weird, like kind of on vacation, still quarantining, still teaching, kind of taking a break. But
Yeah.
I am teaching a class tomorrow, and it is 5:30. The happy hour is 5:30 Eastern time. So it's 2:30 here. So
Ooh,
it's like
that's a real happy hour. Yeah.
Wednesday, right? It's Wednesday.
Yeah, hump day.
Yeah, Wednesday.
I mean, who knows what day it is anyway?
Who knows?
And it doesn't matter.
Midday. The sun is going to be out, so you can do it outside. You can have and it doesn't have to be alcohol. You can have whatever, water or juice or something.
Well, listen, if you're on the West Coast, we're gonna get shut down again over here anyway. You might as well do this yoga class. Get a yoga practice going.
Well, that's a good thing too with Eric and Black Mat Yoga. If the classes don't feel that consistent right now, it's okay because hey, it's
you got time.
You got time. And if you are just wanting to check it out and like, learn start your practice, it's like it like makes that commitment feel a little bit easier because it's like, well, he's only teaching a couple, so I'll just jump into this one and then jump into this one and
for sure.
And talk about Insecure a little bit.
Or whatever else. Yeah. There's usually always some kind of like social component of the class, just because I think it's really important when you're holding space, like for people to be seen, you need to like say hello Ryan, hello Eugene, like I need to call you by name is what my grandmother used to say. So yeah, I do always have some kind of like get to know you, check in, and then we practice. It's not one of those like you just log on and turn your screen off and like just we gonna check in and then you can turn it off. But
great, yeah.
Maybe that part clear. Like we're gonna say hello and then you can do your thing, but it's not one of those just like log on, log off. It's like I'm gonna say hey.
Great. Well, for everybody who is watching on YouTube, we are going to sign off of the live part of it, but you'll be able to see all of Eric's information on our Instagram, and we'll link to his Instagram and for this episode that comes up tomorrow and all that stuff. So everybody who is watching live, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
Please still download the episode tomorrow. If there's people that you wanted to see this or hear this, send the link over to them. We'll thank Eric for being here live and keep talking to him for a second. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.